Alright guys, it's Chatterbox Reviews, coming at you guys with my review for Better Call Saul Season 5, Episode 3. Alright, so we're back for episode 3 of Better Call Saul, the new season. Wow. So we're already on episode 3. Things have been going really fast. I just uploaded my last couple reviews, a couple days before this episode came out. So, I'm a little bit behind, but hopefully this one will be out in the next couple days after the episode. Hopefully we'll get better at these, as the season goes, and hopefully have them out the next day. But anyways, this episode was fantastic. I mean, obviously the cameo is the biggest point that a lot of people are talking about. But just like everything about this episode to me was perfect. And this show really is the best on television. I know I talked about in my reviews for the last couple episodes, I talked about Succession and how I gave them the title for a little bit and how they really impressed me in the summer of last year. But this is a whole nother level, man. It really is. There's really nothing like it on television, and it's really on its own level. So that's what this episode really showed me. The last couple did, they showed me as well. But this one, man, wow. I think this is one of the best of the series, at least to me. And it really gives us a lot, right? Like, it gives us a lot of, first of all, the cameo is in there, right? So that's a big thing. But also gives us a lot of development for Kim and Jimmy. And, of course, development for Saul Goodman and how that character comes to be. And then also, we don't neglect anybody in this episode. So we have Mike in here, too. We have Nacho in here. Like, just a really, really great episode all in all. But anyways, love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you agree with me? Did you find it maybe missing a couple things for you? Did you think it was perfect? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on that one. Love discussing this show, my favorite TV show on air right now. Breaking Bad being my favorite of all time, right? I love this universe, and I love talking about the show with you guys. So really would like to hear your guys' thoughts. And if you enjoyed this review, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel. Would really appreciate that as well. But without any further ado, let's get to a recap. I actually have a lot of notes for this one. A lot of stuff I want to talk about, so this one might end up being a little bit longer. And then we'll get to my rating, favorite character, and some more overall thoughts and kind of predictions. I did take a look at the teaser for next week, so we'll maybe, briefly talk about that towards the end of the video. And what I kind of see or my predictions for next week, and where this is going to go. But yeah, so anyways, let's get into the recap here. Let's get into the beginning of this episode, which I thought was honestly fucking brilliant. Like, just amazing. This opening sequence really set up the whole rest of the episode. And honestly, when you watch Better Call Saul, or at least when I watch Better Call Saul, when you see, like, the beginning frame is the sidewalk, and then you see an ant crawling in, it's just, like, it's just a euphoric moment of, oh my god, like, yep, this is Better Call Saul. Like, it's just an amazing opening sequence here, where there's no dialogue, there's no recognizable characters or humans at all on the screen. There is ants and an ice cream cone and a sidewalk. And it just says so much just with that scene, and the foreshadowing and the way this sets up the whole course of the episode, really, and also kind of the long-term development for Saul Goodman, or Jimmy McGill, if you will. I like just calling him Jimmy. I'm going to stick to Jimmy, even if he becomes, like, full-fledged Saul Goodman in Season 6. I'm going to stick with Jimmy. That's just me. But anyways, so what other show on TV would do something like that as an opening sequence? I mean, I can think of maybe a few. Breaking Bad would have done something like, they did do something like that, but very few shows would go to the length of doing something like that with the sequence, of having these ants there. And it's quite a long sequence too, for what it is. It's not just one little ant crawls across the screen and then we play the intro, right? It is a really, fleshed out sequence. So anyways, so basically we see, right, ants come out. One ant first comes to the ice cream cone that's left on the sidewalk there. He kind of, seeks it out, and then all the rest of the ants come in. And that's exactly how it goes, right? If you leave food out, that's what's most likely going to happen, is you'll get a swarm of ants within probably a short time period, right? So anyway, so all these ants come out, they swarm Jimmy's ice cream cone that he threw on the sidewalk, until eventually the whole thing is filled with ants. I mean, like, just filled. You can't even barely see the ice cream cone, right? You just see the ants all over it. And so I was thinking when I was watching this too, is like, did they get like a guy who owns a bunch of ants and brought them in? Or did they legitimately leave an ice cream cone there for a couple hours and then see all the ants come? I'd like to know. I just thought that was really cool. I watched the behind the scenes and they didn't say anything about that, but yeah. Awesome sequence, and it doesn't really matter how it was done. It looks freaking awesome, right? And the way it goes. So in terms of symbolism here, and I think a lot of people can kind of, figure this one out. But to me, first kind of thoughts is the ice cream cone represents Jimmy, and I think, a lot of people kind of saw that. And the ants are Lalo, Nacho, Gus, like anyone that's in the criminal kind of underworld of Albuquerque here. Those are the ants, right? Or the ants are even just a symbol, if you will, for that world, right? And that world now is just completely corrupting Jimmy and just completely, submerging him, in this type of world and in this environment, and we really get this idea that there's no going back for Jimmy, right? These ants are not going to go away. They've covered the ice cream cone and it's done, right? They're just going to eat the rest of the ice cream cone. It's going to be gone, and that's it. And in a way, right? So the ice cream cone is Jimmy, so that means Jimmy is going to be gone forever. They've completely submerged him, with the ants, and that's what it is. And there's really no turning back now. Once you get a few ants on there, then you just get the whole, you get the whole horde, and that's just what it is. So that's what I got from that scene. Again, I've probably talked a lot too much on this already, but just a brilliant opening sequence here with that. And again, just a few minutes, but amazing stuff. And it really demonstrates this. And then, of course, as you see throughout the episode, and especially like even in this last scene for Jimmy here, when he talks with Nacho and Lalo, there's no going back now. Like, he's in, and I think Nacho says, once you're in, you're in. And I'll talk about that, in a few minutes. But that's what it is, right? And this scene and really foreshadowing that and setting that up for the rest of the episode. Fantastic. All three opening sequences have been absolutely amazing so far in the first 3 episodes. All right. So then we see Nacho takes Jimmy to a car garage. So we basically pick up then right when we get back from the intro, we pick up right where we left off with last episode, which is nice because it was a bit of a cliffhanger. Although I kind of saw where things were going. I didn't think Jimmy was in danger, obviously, but still a little bit of a cliffhanger. We don't know for sure where he's going, where's Nacho taking him. They kind of built it up a little bit in the teaser, but it's like, I'm not falling for that. Anyways, so they take him, to a car garage where Lalo is waiting for him, right? And as Lalo fixes up a car there, Jimmy waits, so Jimmy's waiting, right? And he's like, can I talk? I'm going to talk, right? So he's got to ask him permission to talk, and then he just does it anyways, of course, right? So he starts going on about his past with Nacho, right? And I almost completely forgot that he had a past with Nacho. I did remember it, but very, very faintly, right? So, it was kind of interesting to hear about this. So he's trying to assure Lalo that him and Nacho are good, things went down, but they've repaired their relationship and all this stuff. So he's just going on and on, right? Now I will say beyond just this scene on the surface, I really got a box cutter vibe from Breaking Bad in this scene, especially towards the beginning. I mean, towards the end, we know that Lalo, what's going on here, and that Lalo is legitimately asking Jimmy just for his help, and we know that, right? In the context of the scene, of course, it's not the same as the box cutter scene, with Gus, but I really got the vibe right off the beginning because Jimmy just keeps talking and talking about stuff to help his cause, without any knowledge of what he's there for, right? And this him talking and talking is just making things worse for himself, right? And Lalo is just there in the background, like quietly going about his activity, which is fixing the car, in Gus's case, of course, putting on the suit in that scene, he's just quietly there, not saying anything, just listening, and Jimmy's just digging himself almost a deeper hole, right? And that's exactly what Walter did in that scene with Gus, is he just keeps talking and talking and talking without any knowledge of what's about to happen, right? He thinks he's going to get killed. Jimmy probably may think that in this scene too. And so Walter is, going on and on and on, and then Gus ends up getting the box cutter and he kills Victor in front of him. And in this case, of course, Lalo doesn't bring out the box cutter, but he does kind of just assert his control then when he does decide to come in. And then Jimmy just looks like a fool because all the stuff he's talking about with Nacho makes no sense, and it doesn't matter at all to this situation. But anyways, I just thought it was a really good parallel there between Jimmy and Walter. And at the point, in the box cutter scene, Walter is a lot like Jimmy, right? We've seen him go to those bad places, and we've seen that side of him, but he's not fully, Heisenberg, right? He's not fully that guy yet in that scene, and Jimmy's not fully Saul in this scene. So, anyways, I thought that was a really good parallel. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw that, and box cutter is iconic. It's one of probably the best scenes of Breaking Bad, in the whole run. So, awesome stuff. But anyways, let's get to the crux of this scene. So Lalo and Jimmy discuss Tuco, which is really interesting. Of course, he's Lalo's cousin. And, basically they just discussed that Jimmy had a run-in with him in the past, right? And this is back from season 1. And I know, in hindsight now, I think it might have been Vince Gilligan, but he said how in season 1 they really went kind of too fast into this world with Better Call Saul, and that's why season 2 and 3 are really kind of pulling back from that. So this season 1 event with Tuco was actually quite expedited from what they originally were kind of going for in long-term mapping of the show. But it is interesting now that it comes back like this, right? And it's so impactful because this is why Lalo knows him. So Lalo says Tuco told him about Jimmy, back then, right? And he's been telling Lalo about this lawyer, who ended up saving these couple, kids' lives, right? Back in season 1 time, but probably about maybe 2 years before, or about maybe a year and a half, because we had about a year go past last season, right? So maybe 2 years. But so that answers the question of, how does Lalo even know who Jimmy is? How does he know Saul Goodman? Like, are his advertisements really doing that well, right? But no, right? So that's the connection. That's how Lalo knows who he is because he's talked to Tuco, and Tuco has told him about him. And that's the one question I had with this whole scenario, and they answered it right off the bat. So just as I predicted then, Lalo asked Jimmy to be their inside guy to go in and talk to Crazy 8, represent him, not really, right? Because, he's going to do exactly what Lalo wants. He's not really representing Crazy 8, but he's going to be his attorney, right? So basically he goes in there and he's going to tell Crazy 8 what they want him to say to the cops specifically, and then he's going to do that. He's going to, get these other people, get the DA on these other people, get them away from Lalo, and basically trick them, right? So Jimmy tries to get out of it right away. He offers them, a phone so they can call in Crazy 8, but they're like, no, in person is the only way to do this. And then he tries to demand a really high price from Lalo to make it seem like, that he couldn't afford it or something like that. And, of course, Lalo just brings out a stack of money in his pocket and pays him more than what he asked for. He gives him $8,000 instead of $7,925 or something right like that, right? So Jimmy is basically forced into this, and he has to do it. Now, if he really did refuse this in that scene, do I think he would have been able to? I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure that he would have really been forced into this, to be honest. Because it's not like he went too far into it. He didn't find out any secrets or anything like that, in this scene. But I do think, is there a chance that he could have gotten out of it here still? Possibly, but it doesn't seem like that big of a deal at the time. Go in, tell him what to say, and that's it. But as we see later in the episode, just this one little task, doing it for Lalo, has now, basically just entrapped Jimmy in this world forever, essentially, right? Like, he's never getting out once he's in. And again, that's what Nacho echoes there. Anyway, so that's kind of setting up what Jimmy is to do in this episode here with Crazy 8. All right, so powerful scene here between Nacho and his father. I did want to talk about this one. I think, some people may see it as a throwaway, but to me, I've been a huge fan of Nacho, and I was really disappointed last season, as I said in my other couple reviews, that he was kind of neglected, in the second half of the season, especially the last 3 or 4 episodes. I think he was only in 1 or 2, like 2 whole episodes towards the end of the season for sure. He was not in at all, which is really disappointing because it's like, his arc, they've been developing, and I thought last season, with him, taking the action against Hector. Gus says, "You're mine," and all this stuff, and they're setting up things, and then they just completely forgot about him. This is what I want to see. This is what, I want to see from Nacho, and want to see his character at least be developed and given some more background, because he's such a big player in the show. And so anyway, so his father comes to see his place, and essentially tells him that he's been offered a good deal to sell his shop to a man, Gutierrez, he says. And so this is an interesting scene, and we also see too here underlying it, is Nacho is living with these two girls, right? And, they're not the best, well-kept or, well-mannered and all that stuff. So obviously there's those undertones of that playing in when the father walks in. Nacho's kind of embarrassed by it, right? And then he's also got this ritzy apartment and, everything. And so there's a lot of that stuff going on in the background here. The father doesn't say it, but we know, and Nacho knows exactly how the father feels. He says, "Oh, this is big," right? And so, you can see those undertones of how his father perceives Nacho and how disappointed he is in him. Because, yes, he has this big place, and he's living fine, but he knows he's only doing that because he's in the drug business, and that's where his money is coming from, obviously, right? So, again, just really good underlying things there, and that, I think, comes down to the direction as well. So Nacho says it's a good idea, right? Good idea to sell the shop. Maybe it's his chance to finally retire, right? And this is exactly what Nacho wants him to do, but his father completely outsmarts him in this scene, or at least in this moment, because his father then, snaps at him, essentially, right? And accuses him of being the one who's contributing the money for the deal, right? So he's went to this Gutierrez guy and gave him the money to then buy the shop from his dad. And I'm not sure if that's actually what happened. I don't think so, right? Because Nacho right away says, no, right? But then he also doesn't really deny it later. So we haven't seen that happen. We haven't seen Nacho give this Gutierrez guy money to buy the shop. Or maybe we did at the end of last season. I forget. But I don't think this actually was what happened. So, I'm not sure, but this is what Nacho wants. So obviously Nacho is going to encourage him to do it. But anyways, so he says that Nacho wants to stay in the business and his dad to run away from it. Because, and that is really true, right? We saw this last season. Nacho wants to stay in the business, and he just wants his dad to run away. He doesn't want to get out of the business, really, right? He's thought about it and stuff, but he doesn't really want to get out of it. He just wants his dad to get out of it, right? So that he no longer has that, people can hold that over him in the business. And then also, if they don't have something to hold him over, that would make it easier for him to get out as well. So for him, and it's a selfish thing, though, right? Because he's, he wants his dad to sacrifice and do all this stuff just so that he can stay in the business. And so it's really, he's not trying to help the dad. Right, and the dad, he tells Nacho that he will not run away, right? He's not running away from his job. He's going to keep doing his job. And of course, this too, he doesn't know the real magnitude of what Nacho's business is and what kind of consequences that his dad really faces. And of course, Nacho's not going to tell him. But, that is interesting as well, just to think about there, that his dad doesn't know Gus Fring. Right? He says, I'm not running away, I'm staying, but if he knew what Gus Fring was capable of, maybe he would run, right? Anyway, so Nacho, he says should get out of the business by going to the police and then facing punishment for all the things he's done. So turn yourself in, serve the time, and then come out, and we'll all be safe, right? There's no reason for me to run away if you just turn yourself in. And, his dad's right? But Nacho's not going to do that. Nacho's not going to do that. And let's be real. If he went to the police, he would probably be killed by Gus anyways, in Gus worrying that he's going to tell him stuff or whatever, right? He gets that image of a rat. So this makes Nacho's life all the more difficult and means his dad is going to continue to be used as a threat against him. And like I said, it's sad because he really cannot tell his dad how big of a deal it is that he's not running away or that he's not leaving this shop or his regular life. And that's hard on him too. But yeah, so as long as his dad is there, as long as his dad is at the shop, people are going to keep, like Gus, are going to keep using him against him. And Nacho then is beholden to whoever that is that's using him. We saw it with Hector and the Salamancas, and now Gus is doing it as well. So really tough position for Nacho to be in, and he can't get through to his dad, to do this. And his dad's probably right, right? His dad is right. That is what Nacho should do, but he's not going to. So, anyways, a really great scene. Then his dad leaves and storms off a little bit, and we see, Nacho impacted by that, right? Of course. And so one question that came to mind, though, was, will his dad actually end up going to the police and turning Nacho in? Would a father do that to his own son? And we saw in last season as well, Nacho goes to his dad's house, and his dad calls 911, right? He's about to call and ask for an ambulance and stuff, but he actually hangs up on 911, and lets Nacho stay at his house. And so, but that's not really that extreme. But I'm just wondering if that's maybe where they're going with this, and maybe the dad's gonna like turn him in and force him then to go to the police and get out of this life. And then what's going to happen to Nacho? Maybe that's how he gets killed, because he's not in Breaking Bad, right? So that, just kind of trying to piece things together here. And I'm just wondering if that is maybe what they're building to. That would be really interesting and a really emotional, beat to really pick up on there. Anyways, so yeah, really great scene with Nacho and his dad. All right, so this is the sequence of the episode. Probably one of the best sequences I've seen of the show. An amazing moment. So any Breaking Bad fans, man, this was just insane. So, all right, so Jimmy goes to the prison and talks to Crazy 8, tells him that he's this new lawyer, introduces himself and all this stuff. Of course, Crazy 8 has no idea who he is and is wondering, why, who's this guy? Like, why am I talking to this guy? I didn't call a lawyer. So, anyways, but he gives him a notepad to memorize, so basically gives him exactly what Lalo wants him to say. And, he's got to memorize this then to tell the cops. So then we see Jimmy wait outside to see the cops pull up to the prison. And then we also know, of course, he's waiting until they go in and start talking to him a little bit so that then he can storm in and, basically show off the act, right? Play off the act. So the car pulls up to the prison, and who else but Hank and Gomez get out of the car. Of course, at this point, their faces aren't revealed. But the thing that happened here is that this was spoiled, right? And I think like everybody knew, maybe some, common viewers that just literally turn on the show, every week and watch it. They don't really go on Twitter, don't go anything on behind the scenes. They wouldn't know this. And this would have been a massive surprise that would have just like shook them, right? Gave them chills. I even got chills a little bit, even though I knew it was coming. But they get out, and so it's not revealed, but because I knew that they were in the episode, I know that's Hank, I know that's Gomez, and that's where they're going with this. So I really do wish that this wasn't spoiled, and I really am jealous of the people who had no idea, that this was going to happen. Still amazing. Still absolutely amazing, and still a really great scene, and really great to see both of them back. But it did get spoiled, and I don't even think they planned on spoiling it. I think then it actually leaked, unfortunately, and then the Twitter for the show just like picked it up and ran with it, and they basically made this episode as Hank and Gomez's return to this world, and then they put like a bunch of advertisements of Hank's return tonight on AMC and all this stuff. So I was a little bit disappointed by that, but they kind of just had to run with it. The information leaked. So they just did what they could, right? They wanted to get better ratings. So, it is what it is, but, just wish it wasn't spoiled. And maybe that's my fault, right? Maybe I shouldn't have went on Twitter and watched all these things and look closely at the show. But this information was leaked like way back, right? Like, way before the season started. I think around like El Camino time, a little bit after that. So I knew about this one for a while. I wasn't sure what episode, but thanks to AMC, I knew it was this one. Anyways, after all that, so Hank and Gomi walk in and flash their badges. This was just amazing. Classic Hank. Really great to have Dean Norris back. Man, and he he is Hank from Breaking Bad in this scene. Like, it's insane. I think they were saying in the behind the scenes of this one, 9 years since both of these guys have portrayed these characters. 9 years. And the makeup team did a really great job. They both look pretty good. I thought Gomi did look a little bit older if you look at some side by side. he did look a bit older, but Hank looks the exact same as Breaking Bad, like, honestly. So Dean Norris never changed. Awesome actor. Really great to see him back in this. And honestly, like, you would think this was filmed like a week later from Breaking Bad. Like, he captures the mannerisms and everything the exact same as what he did in Breaking Bad. Anyway, so we have a classic Hank and Gomez conversation about freezer food and how you can't donate frozen food to the food bank and all this stuff. It's just awesome. Like, these are the conversations that were so great in Breaking Bad, and it's really great to see that again here. So the writing is really keeping it up there. Maintaining that level. So then they enter into the interrogation room with Crazy 8. Hank says, let's get this circle jerk over with, right? So he knows, him and Gomi both know, I mean, they're experienced. They know what this is probably going to be, right? They know they're either getting set up or he's not going to give them much information. It'd be very rare that one of these guys would actually talk and give them valuable information, right? So they know going in, they're a bit skeptical. And just as Crazy 8 starts talking to Hank and Gomez, which, by the way, I gotta mention, the start of this scene where Hank is just staring at him is like so funny. And again, it's just a really great Hank mannerism there. That he did that all the time in Breaking Bad while looking at people like that. Fantastic. So anyways, so just as he starts talking to them, then Jimmy comes running in, right, and makes this big show and acts like they're violating, Domingo's constitutional rights by speaking with him, by speaking with him, says his name is Saul Goodman, and they're speaking to him without his attorney. All this stuff, right? So he says Saul Goodman, and Hank obviously just makes fun of him. So funny, and he's, Saul Goodman, right? And that laugh, like, everything is just amazing here in this scene. The Hank laugh, wow, did I miss that? So such great nostalgia here with Saul representing people in Breaking Bad. We saw this multiple times. He represents Jesse, he represents Badger, he represents all types of guys that Hank and Gomi interview in Breaking Bad, and so it's really great. Like, this is the first time that they meet Saul Goodman, so it's really great, and you see in Breaking Bad that they know who he is already. And so just a really great nostalgic moment here for all those scenes where Saul Goodman was in that interrogation room with Hank and Gomi. So Jimmy then plays out this game of acting mad, at his client for talking, in which Crazy 8 denies him, right? And he decides to talk anyways. Of course, this is all just an act, right? The whole act is just supposed to ensure that Hank and Gomez know that the information is true, or that they think it's true, because his lawyer's trying to get him to stop talking about it, right? But Hank just quickly figures it out, right? Hank's experience, he knows. He says, I feel like I'm getting, what does he say? Yeah, I feel like someone's yanking my chain or something like that, and not in a good way, right? Anyway, so he quickly figures it out, and he's, ready to walk away. Him and Gomi are about to leave because they figured out it's all an act, until Jimmy then convinces them to make their deal contingent on arrests. So they're gonna, take Crazy 8's information, and if you get arrests, that's the only way he gets out, right? And there's pretty much nothing to lose then for Hank and Gomi, right? Maybe a little bit of, a few minutes wasted of the day or something like that. But if it's contingent, there's nothing to waste. So Hank then reluctantly agrees. They sit down again. Jimmy then makes sure that Crazy 8 will be protected. And the key here, the most important thing of this, is that he will be Hank's exclusive CI, right? So he then becomes Hank's informant, his kind of like personal informant, right? So that he's not just going to be a DA informant who answers to anybody at any time. No, instead, he's going to be Hank's CI. And it's important because it explains the beginning of Breaking Bad and how Crazy 8 is his informant and helps him. And I think it's the ride-along, right? Where Crazy 8 gives the tip to Hank, right? So it really just brings it full circle there, and why Crazy 8 is so important to Hank as his informant there. And that's exactly why. It's because Saul pushes for that in this scene. Fantastic. So Crazy 8 finally starts spilling the goods that Lalo and Nacho want him to, and that is where we leave this scene, and that's where we leave Hank and Gomi. So what a fantastic scene. Again, so great to see Hank and Gomez back. Especially Hank, though. I mean, Gomez was a good character, but Hank, of course, is, one of the biggest players in Breaking Bad, especially towards the end, of course. And to see Dean Norris back in that role, back on screen, is just phenomenal. Like, did you really think it was ever going to happen? I mean, a lot of us have been waiting for Jesse and Walt to show up in Better Call Saul. I didn't know if Hank would show up, right? And this is just a fantastic scene, and just gives us a lot of explanation. But also, if we take a step back into the show now, back into Better Call Saul, this is big for Jimmy, because we see in this scene that he is playing this game. He's running the gambit, right, around Hank and Gomez, trying to get them in, doing all this stuff for Lalo. But then he also tries to protect Crazy 8 in this scene, which is something that Lalo and, Nacho would not probably have told him to do, right? They don't care if he's an informant for Hank or the whole DEA. Jimmy is the one who then argues for that. So I thought that was really cool. That was important, because it does show he actually does care about Crazy 8 in this scene. More than Lalo and Nacho would have, wanted him to. So, anyways, amazing stuff there. So then we get to Kim. So her part in this episode I thought was interesting. Her part with Mesa Verde. So we see her difficult balance between Mesa Verde and then her pro bono clients. And I forgot about this, how she's still doing both of them. I almost thought she had quit Mesa Verde completely, but, I forgot about last season, the end of it. So, anyways, so because she has to balance these two different sides, almost two different lives, really, that she's living here, so she's called away from the courthouse from a pro bono client in order to go to a farmer's house on the property of Mesa Verde's next bank, who is refusing to leave. And so this is a really kind of interesting situation for Kim. And again, it's the total opposite of what she would have done in court that day with the pro bono client, right? She's essentially in the court helping the farmer in this scene, right? She's helping the farmer at court, and now she has to go into the situation where she's standing up to the farmer. So it's a really big difference, right? It's a big contrast between these two sides of her, and that she's trying to balance them. And that's what goes through in this scene. So she stays cordial with the farmer and is about to leave, before he then accuses her of being just another one of the rich people, right? Or being, just another one of those people kind of thing. And again, it's ironic. It really is ironic, because she's not that person, right? Like, she literally is probably the only one in Mesa Verde, at least, that's there in that scene, that's not that person. That she is actually trying to change that with her pro bono work, which we know she enjoys more. She likes helping people like him, right? And so we know that that's not actually her, and obviously to him, he doesn't recognize that. He, just sees her as another one of the, the rich people or whatever, but that's not her. And that's where she has to kind of play up this act then, where she stands up to him and gives them kind of that last ultimatum to take the deal or leave it, right? And so she kind of taps into this part of her that she's pretty used to with Mesa Verde and that type of, that type of environment. And then, right, and then has to leave. And then we see, as she's driving, away later, that she's thinking about it. And that's exactly Kim, right? That's not really her. The side of her that stands up to the farmer and talks to him and all this stuff, trying to get him to take the deal, all this stuff, that's not really her. The side of her is when she goes back to him, right, and tries helping him. That is the side of Kim that's actually real, or kind of the Kim that she's trying to become, I guess, right? The side of her that she enjoys being. So, so she returns later, trying to show him some houses that are on the market, trying to help him out here, trying to give him some confidence about moving, and she even tells him about a childhood story that, is trying to kind of embark that sympathy, trying to relate to him a little bit more. And he doesn't buy it, right? So the farmer doesn't buy it. He says, you'll say anything. And I'm actually wondering, too, like, is that a real story? I really am not sure, because we saw her con one of her clients just last episode, or episode 1. Is she conning him here? I don't know. I feel like that maybe is a real story, and that is the real Kim. But it just, I don't know. It just didn't seem believable to me. And I'm wondering if that's kind of what they were playing on there as a viewer, for us to see, like, okay, but, does that seem real? And when you place yourself in the farmer's shoes, it's hard to believe that story after what she did earlier to him that day, right? So you see why he wouldn't buy that. And it's just too late for Kim to say something like that. It's too late. So, anyways, something is going on here under the surface. And this balance is basically just demonstrated through this scene with her and the farmer. And I think she really is now recognizing the reality of working for Mesa Verde and continuing to live in that world where, she's forced into being that person, but she doesn't actually like being that person, she'd rather help people, right? She actually likes, doing the pro bono work. She likes helping those clients, and those clients are the farmer, like I said. So I don't think this is going to go on much longer. I think she's very short-lived at Mesa Verde, I don't see how this works, and I think that's exactly what they're setting up here with this story for Kim in finding this balance, and I don't think that she can find that balance. I think the Mesa Verde thing is going to be too hard for her, even though it's bringing in all the cash. I don't think she can continue it, and we're going to see the consequences of that, obviously. If she ends up dropping Mesa Verde, we're going to see what happens. So, really great stuff there with Kim, though. So, then we see Jimmy's taken to the racetrack to tell Lalo what happened. He says it went exactly how they wanted it to, right? Crazy 8 told them the right information. He memorized what they told him, and that's exactly what he told Hank and Gomez. He also tells him that Crazy 8 is now going to be an informant, but that he shouldn't be considered a rat, right? They shouldn't be concerned, that he's now a rat, that he's going to tell them everything, or that even, they should go as far as killing him for being a rat. But instead, Lalo should view it as a hotline to the DEA, in that he can be used to feed the DEA any information that Lalo wants in the future at any time, right? And that's an important rule because it's almost like another weapon for Lalo to use. And Crazy 8 obviously is going to keep doing it because, of course he's going to, right? Lalo's telling him what to do. He's probably going to get killed if he refuses. So, anyway, Crazy 8's going to be now on the outside. So he's going to get out of prison after this successful raid. They're going to give him the deal. He's going to get out, and he's going to be the informant still while on the outside, where Lalo can just tell him himself whatever to say to Hank, and then he's going to tell Hank, and that's the way it's going to go. So, really great deal the way this whole worked out, and Saul sets this up himself, or Jimmy. So he then tells Lalo that then he needs to find a different lawyer in the future due to his tight schedule, right? And you see Jimmy trying to come up with these excuses. They're just pathetic, right? He doesn't quite understand Lalo. He doesn't quite understand this world yet, and we can see that in the way that he talks to Lalo, right? So Lalo responds, "You'll make time, right? You'll make time for us," and basically saying no. Right? Like, you are our lawyer, you're our guy. So there really is no getting out of this now for Jimmy. And Nacho tells him this, right? After Jimmy asks, who he just set up with Crazy 8's information. Like, he's kind of realizing, like, okay, but who did I just set up? Like, who are these, drops? Who's involved with this? And Nacho says, once you're in, right? Like, it doesn't matter who you just set up. You're in the business, and that's what it is. You can't get out now. And Nacho's like the best person to say this to Jimmy because he's in that exact situation that Jimmy has now just found himself in. So really, really, a really quick development here because he does one job and now he's completely in and he can't get out. Jimmy, of course, a little naive here because I think he truly believes, I'll just do this one thing and get out of it. But until Lalo Salamanca leaves or he dies, Jimmy's going to be in this business and he's going to be beholden to Lalo's orders. Jimmy's now ensnared in this world and symbolized once again as he returns back to the sidewalk and sees the ice cream cone basically gone, devoured by all the ants. And it really is like just between him dropping the ice cream cone and then him coming back in this scene, everything has changed. The ice cream cone, which is Jimmy, is now gone, and now he's in this world. He's in this different environment, and he can't get out of it. So really, really crazy stuff here. And again, that ice cream cone comes back. Really great symbolism there. All right, so last couple things here. So Nacho talks to Gus, who of course we find out is the one who is implicated by Crazy 8's information. So this one, you didn't have to really think about it for too long to realize that, yeah, Gus is the one that's going to be implicated by Lalo's plan. And of course, Nacho's kind of his inside guy, and now he knows what Lalo's going to do. He was by Lalo's side the whole way through this process. So he tells Gus the information, right? And of course, Gus's team is implicated. So Gus then decides, though, to let the DA raid the drops in order to make sure Lalo doesn't find out Nacho told them. Because Nacho says, if they don't find the money or if they don't make arrests, Lalo is going to know that I told you guys, or at least that someone did, right? And of course, that's probably going to eventually lead to Nacho. So, very bad idea, right? For Gus to pull out his guys and them not to find anything there. So, this is the difference then between Gus and Lalo. Lalo in this situation would have said, I don't care. I don't care about you. I'm saving the money. Like, I'm not giving up all that money, and I'm not risking my guys for this one little thing. But Gus is different. Gus is calculated. He's willing to risk something like this for the long game. He plays the long game. That's Gus's whole character. That's his whole arc in Breaking Bad and in Better Call Saul. That's just who he is. He plays the long game, and he's calculated. So he knows that having Nacho is more beneficial than losing a little bit of money in these raids. And so he's going to keep his men in place, and he's going to let them get caught. He's going to let them get arrested and let this go down in order to keep Nacho safe, at least for the time being. So, and again, the Salamancas never would do this. They would never do something like this, but Gus does. So we get the sense that this is just the beginning of Nacho's inside work for Gus, and this time, interestingly enough, it actually doesn't save Gus anything. Like, it really doesn't do anything for Gus here. It's kind of actually counterproductive, really, because, Gus knows what Lalo is doing, but he can't stop him. He can't stop him from doing it. And so, we get this idea, Nacho's going to be around for a while, and Gus is eventually going to find ways to be able to stop Lalo with information he gets from Nacho. They just got to work out a way so that Lalo doesn't know it's Nacho is telling him. Anyways, really great situation there, and like I said, just the beginning of that. So, to end then, this scene was amazing. Again, no dialogue, very little, exposition or anything like that, but such a beautiful scene. So Kim meets Jimmy on the porch, as we saw the mirror of this scene earlier in the episode, where Kim is on the porch and Jimmy comes up. This time Kim comes up and Jimmy's there. And, so Kim looked at the empty beer bottle before in that scene. We caught her, looking at it a couple times, and then she ends up picking it up and taking it back inside. But this time, no, stuff has happened, and so she now throws the beer bottle off the balcony, and then Jimmy does the same. They both throw the empty beer bottles and let them crash down on the parking lot under them. And that's pretty much where we end. Light goes on, and then they hurry back inside. So it's a small scene with no dialogue, but it shows so much. So much. The writing here is just simply off the charts, and it conveys so much. So to me, what I got out of the scene is both of these characters are so boxed in, are so restrained now by their respective lives and the situations that they're now in, that doing something rebellious, just doing something small like this, is such a relief to both of these characters. Being able to just throw a beer bottle down and let it break in the parking lot is such a big action for both of them, because they are quickly losing control and neither have an effective way of getting out of their situation anytime soon, right? We have Mesa Verde paying the bills. Kim can't get out of that anytime soon because they're paying the bills. That's the reason she's able to afford the apartment with Jimmy, is Mesa Verde. She can't just leave Mesa Verde on a whim, and Jimmy can't walk out of the crime world now because he'd be risking his life. Right? Like, if he just got out now, Lalo would probably look for him. So both of these characters are so boxed in now in both of their lives. It's such a really great parallel between these two characters and trying to work out how they're going to live their life now in these situations that they really don't want to be in, but now they've made themselves a part of. So really great. That's the way I took it. It's such a small little action, but it gives them such relief in this time in their situation. So anyways, amazingly written episode, and this scene really great to end it off. All right, so in terms of a rating for this episode, I'm going to do it. This is a 5 out of 5. This is, if I gave last episode a 4.9, I gotta give this one a 5. I thought this episode was one of the best of the series. I said that for last week too. Man, the start of this season, the first 3 episodes here have been absolutely fantastic. Out of the premiere, we could have seen a little bit more. I thought it was maybe just a little kind of paint by the numbers. You could kind of see where they were going with it. Kind of, methodical. But episode 2 was fantastic, and this episode is flawless. To me, this is a flawless episode. I didn't talk about Mike. I want to talk about Mike just a little bit here, but he's in a tailspin. He gets in a fight with a couple guys, a couple goons on the street there, and he's not in a good place. He gets in an argument with the bartender and all that stuff. So that was a very brief scene, but it was really great because it shows so much about Mike and where he's going, and I'm okay with him having a smaller role this season because he had such a big one last season. I'm fine with Nacho being propped up a bit and Mike going down a little bit, especially with Jonathan Banks. You don't want to work him too hard, right? I'm just joking, but he is getting up there in age. Has to be said, right? So, anyways, but such well written and directed. This episode, the writing off the charts. I believe her name is Ann Cherkis, I think, Cherkis, and she's written some of the better episodes of the show so far. So I'm not surprised that this one is amazing as well. And the direction here, just fantastic. The cinematography as well, off the charts. The beginning sequence with the ants is just amazing, right? And just a lot of the shots they get, absolutely fantastic. Really, really great. And a lot of these scenes without dialogue play out so well because of that direction. Really awesome. The cameo of Hank and Gomez was absolutely amazing. I did get chills. I knew it was coming, but I still got chills. It was that good. And I really do think it was not forced. I see a lot of these shows, right? They'll do a flashback episode just to bring back a big character, pull on the heartstrings or whatever, create a chilling scene. But this wasn't even forced. This is a logical development. They could have put Hank and Gomez in season 1 with Tuco or something like that, right? They could have put these characters that you recognize in here and there. We got Gale last season. But again, a logical development to introducing Gale into the show. So it's really... yes, they're going to show us these characters, but it really is restrained because it has to make sense to the story. And in this, it really does make sense that this is the first time we meet Hank and Gomez because Jimmy's now entering into this world for the first time. And they're also, they've been in this world for a while, and now they're going to meet Crazy 8. And so it really just comes full circle and makes a lot of sense. So yes, the cameo is great, but it's also great that it wasn't forced. It felt completely natural to have these two characters appear. And it looks like they're actually going to be in the next few episodes. Hank's in the next episode. I thought this might just be a cameo and we'd see them next season again. But they're actually going to be part of the cast for this season. So really, really awesome there. All right, so setting up a nice parallel between Kim and Jimmy here, as I said, that last scene really, really brings that out and demonstrates the type of situations that both of them are in and how they're going to face that. I think it's going to be different ways, but we're going to have to see where that goes from there. Of course, like I said, Mike is in a tailspin. Nacho getting some much-needed development. I love that scene with his father. So intimate and really spoke a lot about Nacho and his father's relationship. Which I think is going to be important going forward. So really great there. A little bit of a longer episode. I thought they could have ended this one a couple minutes early, actually. But the last couple minutes were really great, too, with that last scene with Kim and Jimmy. So is what it is, but it is a little bit of a longer episode. Did want to mention that. And then lastly, Saul Goodman is not yet in full swing. And we see this with Jimmy. He's hesitant about the Crazy 8 situation. Doesn't want to get involved at first. And then he also kind of backs up Crazy 8 in that interrogation as well. And, and gets him a good deal, which Lalo did not tell him to do. So really interesting there that, of course, we're still seeing glimpses of Jimmy come out while this Saul Goodman persona is being, basically... displayed, right? It's being shown to everybody, but there's still Jimmy in there, whereas in Breaking Bad, very little, maybe 1 or 2 glimpses we see of Jimmy in Breaking Bad, and that's it. That is Saul, and he's not quite there yet. So, really awesome stuff there, and really look forward to next week's episode, man. Looks really great, suspenseful. Hank's in it. Awesome stuff. Really great. Favorite character for this one, then I got to go with Kim Wexler, played by Rhea Seehorn. How she did not get an acting nom for the Emmys last year, I do not know. I think everybody, I think Michael Mando, Jonathan Banks, Bob Odenkirk, Rhea Seehorn, even Tony Dalton has been fantastic in the first 3 episodes as Lalo. I feel like I'm going to be forgetting somebody here. Who else? Michael McKean got snubbed as well for it. Anyways, the whole cast deserves nominations at the Emmys, Rhea Seehorn being one of them. She is fantastic, absolutely really great in this episode, and some great development for Kim. Again, developing this balance is going to be impossible, I think, and she's going to have to find some way to either get out of Mesa Verde, get out of the pro bono, but I think she would rather go pro bono, and we'll have to see how she balances that going forward. But anyway, so that'll just about do it for my review of this one. I know it's really long. I apologize for that, but I love talking about the show, and this episode in particular was absolutely fantastic. The best show on TV. Love Better Call Saul, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the season here. But anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this one. Really do appreciate it, and I'd love to hear some of your thoughts down below. Love discussing with you guys, and really would like to hear what you guys thought of this episode. But anyways, once again, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this one, and we'll see you next week for Better Call Saul Season 5, Episode 4.